Alrighty guys, I'm going to go ahead and try to explain a little bit about ratios and equivalent ratios and rates. That way you can do a little bit better on your lesson assignment and move forward. So just as a reminder, all of these are different types of ratios. So for example, they're comparing the number of cups of sauce, so we're doing sauce, and we're comparing it to servings. Now you can look at it as a fraction, or you can even use like the colon, like sauce to servings, or you can even do it as a fraction or use it as words, whatever you want. But it says how many cups of sauce are needed for 8 servings of spaghetti. We notice that that's the number that's missing. Now, anytime you look at a ratio table, I want you to think about the pattern as going from one side to the other. So how am I going from the number of cups of sauce to the number of servings? Sometimes you have to do a little bit more math, like a division or fraction or things like that, but the best way to think about it is just like this. How am I going from cups of sauce to servings? Well, think about it. 1 cup of sauce will give you 2 servings. So to go from 1 cup of sauce to 2 servings, that's times 2. To go from 2 cups of sauce to 4 servings, that's times 2. 2 times 2 gets me 4. If I did 10 to 20, that's also times 2. So we're noticing a pattern over and over again to go from number of cups of sauce to number of servings. Now, only issue is, for example, this one, it's going in the opposite direction. So even though it's going in the opposite direction, we're still considering it like multiplying by 2. But look at it this way. The arrow is going in the opposite direction. So if I'm doing the opposite of multiplying by 2, we're actually going to, instead of multiplying by 2, if we're going the opposite way, we're going to go ahead and divide by 2. So when I do 8 divided by 2, that would get me that 4 cups of sauce get me the 8 servings. If I check if my process works, if I did 4 times 2, that would get me 8. So anytime you're looking for a missing number in the table, that's how you kind of work through it. Kind of think about what is that pattern or rate to get from the ratio from one side to another. Alright, so let's look at this one. To show the difference between the relationship between the size and number of pounds of meat needed for lasagna, they use this chart. So we have a pattern from going from the serving size all the way to the pounds of meat. The employer, sorry, let me make this a little bit smaller. The employer who created the chart made an error when calculating or computing the number of pounds of meat for one of the serving sizes. For which serving size is the ratio of pounds of meat different from the other ratios? Now notice these are all different, 20 to 2.5, 50 to 6.5. So there's nothing that is kind of like the same if you want to think about it that way. So what we have to do is we have to find a base kind of rate or unit, that we can figure out to get one serving size. So, or you can either do to 1 serving size or to 1 pound of meat, whatever works best for you. So I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So for example, we have our different serving sizes. So let's start with 20, or you can even start with the pounds of meat, whatever works best for you, okay? Because you want to find out what the rate is for just one by the end of it. So let's say, for example, kind of depends. I want to go with the numbers that are on the smaller side. So I'm going to say, I want to find out how much 1 pound of meat, how much that serving size is, or that kind of relationship. So let's look at this example. Let's start with this one right here. I'm going to color it in green. 80 servings will need 10 pounds of meat. So I have my servings and my amount of meat over here. So let's try to solve and figure out, well, how much is it for just 1 pound of meat? Now you could also do it for 1 serving. It doesn't matter, but I want to compare it all in the same way. Think about it like if you did lemonade servings to amount of sugar, right? If 10 people make different recipes, you want to find out how much is just for 1, cup of lemonade or 1 cup of sugar. You want to find everything that has the same either denominator or different part of the ratio. So let's do this. So how do I go from 10 to 1? Well, I divide by 10. If I divide this by 10, I get 8. So according to my information, this recipe right here, and I'll do it in green that way, I can keep it all nice and color-coded. For 80, I know that it's 8 servings for 1 pound of meat. Okay? 8 servings will get me 1 pound of meat. So let's try the next one. I'll do that one in red. Let's do 120 servings for 15 pounds. So 120 servings for 15 pounds. So 1 pound is how much? It's kind of like a proportion. Well, to go from 15 to 1, I have to divide by 15. 120 divided by 15. Now, I'm not going to show the math, okay, because I want you to, try it on your own, and also I want to make the video kind of quick. But if I do 20 divided by 15, that actually gets me 8. So over here, we notice that that's also 8 servings for 1 pound of meat. So whoever did this recipe and this recipe, they used the same ratio. 8 servings was for 1 pound of meat. Now over here, we got to do the same thing, so I'm going to do a different color. All right, for this one, if I say 20 servings is for 2.5 pounds of meat, how much servings is 1 pound? Now think about it the same way. Well, to go from 2.5 to 1, I have to divide by 2.5. Over here, I'm going to do the same thing. Now again, for time's sake, because I want to go through a few more questions, do the math on your own. If you forgot how to do division of decimals, 20 divided by 2.5, second number must be a whole number. So that changes to 25. If I move 1 decimal place here, I do it there also. So I do 200. 200 divided by 25 gets me 8. So I notice that this one also has 8 servings. I got to confirm it, right, because I don't want to just say, oh, I think it works that way. Let's make sure the very last one is there too. 50 servings for 6.5 pounds of meat. How much servings for 1 pound of meat? Now again, we divide by 6.5 and do the same thing here, divide by 6.5. Now pause the video, do whatever you need to do to solve that. But if I did 50 divided by 6.5, it's going to give me a long decimal, like 7.69, yeah. Either way, that's not the same. That's obviously something a lot different. So because that one's different, 50 was the right answer. That is the one recipe that does not follow the rest. All right. Next one. A child is hopping along a sidewalk. The ratio table shows a comparison. Which statement correctly explains how to find the distance traveled after 150 hops? Now, remember, we talked about trying to find that pattern. How do I go from this side to that side? In this case, there's not a nice, pretty number. I can't go from 20 to 30 very easily. In this case, I want to try to do what I did on the last problem. The last problem, notice, I found out all of them as a unit rate, or how much 1 would get me. So over here, I'm going to try to find out, well, how much is it to go from 1 hop? So if I do 20 hops, gets me 30 feet. How far will 1 hop get me? Well, if I do that, I know 20. If I divide that by 20, I get 1. 30 divided by 20, okay? 20 goes in there a complete, if you do the math, 1.5 times. So 1 hop is 1.5 feet. Now if you go back and try and do that, to go from 1 to 1.5 is times 1.5. Over here it's times 1.5. If you go and check, guys, it's the exact same thing each time, times 1.5. The reason this is not correct, adding and subtracting, those relationships don't go with ratios and rates. Ratios and rates are multiplicative. That means we either multiply or we divide in order to get our answer. So both of these tell us the correct thing. We found the ratio or the unit rate 1 to 1.5. But then at the end we need to multiply. That's why this one is correct and not this one. When you divide by that factor, 1 divided by 1.5 doesn't get you to 1.5. So that's why we need to make sure that we are multiplying all the way through. Alrighty, last one. We have the ratio table there. It says Mandy is making 15 cups of fruit salad. What is the ratio of grapes to blueberries that she should use? Now, excuse me. Same thing, guys. We want to look at how am I going from one side to another. Okay? Now, another way we can look at it, if we try to do 2 to 0.5, that's kind of hard to do in our head. We can't really think about that maybe on the spot. 6 to 1.5, it's still a little bit tricky. What about 20, though? I know to go from 20 to 5, I divide by 4, and that works. So let's try it the other way. If I do 24, if I divide 24 by 4, yeah, that gets me 6. Okay? So let's keep looking at each one, right? Trying to go from, each kind of thing there. It says Mandy is making 15 cups of fruit salad. What ratio of grapes to blueberries could she use? So we notice that we want to keep that there. So that's one pattern that we notice. Now another way to look at this is if I have grapes grapes, my blueberries, and we have my total amount also. So, for example, let's use this one, 20 grapes for 5 blueberries, right? Because we divide that by 4. And then if I do that, I get a total of 25. So that's another way to look at the ratio. Either way, we have to find this pattern. So let's see which of these patterns stay true. Well, to go from 9 to 6, if I divide by 4, that does not work. 10 to 5, if I divide that by 4, no, it does not work either. But from 12 to 3, notice if I divide by 4, 12 divided by 12 divided by 4, yes, that does get us 3. This is the only correct one that actually works out that process. So that's the only one keeping that relationship true. So that's what you got to look for, guys. Always trying to go from one side to another. Sometimes you might have to look at this, and I just want to show you that as an example, but we always want to look for that pattern to go from one side to another. If you check 2 and 6, you'll also get that it's divided by 4. Okay, so if you want to go and check, you can check, it will work. So again, make sure that you use everything that we practice here. Use that to help you out, and if you need further help, come for office hours every day, Monday through Thursday, from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. And this is for 2020 Summer Online Summer School.